Welcome back to Normal Island. I'm Curtis Daly, and I'm joined again by Helena, aka No Justice MTG. I feel so blessed that we've got you twice in a week. How are you
I
doing?
know, right? It's good to be back in such a short time. It's been so long
Oh
since we've
no,
not
those
seen
2
each other,
days were
Curtis.
insufferable.
They really, really were. I was getting separation anxiety just thinking about it.
Oh, bless. We've got a really good show coming up, and again, Helena with the perfect insights that we always need. But this is coming up on tonight's show. Your party's Adnan Hussain raises some red flags. Labour begins their smears against Zack Polanski, and right-wing free speech hypocrisy on Glinner arrest, otherwise known as Graham Linehan. As always, remember to like the stream, and if you're not a subscriber, please hit that button. Of course, we'll be getting to your comments at the end, so make sure you're busy in the chat as you always are. But on to our first story. Independent MP for Blackburn, Adnan Hussain, who is a member of the Independent Alliance and is involved with the New Left Party, has raised some red flags. So it started with a tweet from India Willoughby, who expressed concerns that Hussain was socially conservative. She said, "I honestly think Zara Sultana, who I have a lot of faith in, and Jeremy Corbyn need to make a statement about Adnan Hussain and trans rights. My community is living in very real fear at the moment. Terrifying. We are sick to the back teeth of hearing trans hate is a point of view." Now, Adnan responded by saying, "There was no hatred expressed, India. It's a conversation that needs to be had. Agreeing with women on their need for spaces exclusive to them is not an expression of hatred to any other community. I stated the need for safe spaces for trans people. That's not hatred." Now, below that, he was asked, "Do you believe that trans women are women? Because agreeing with women on their need for spaces exclusive to them excludes them from the category of women." And he simply replied, "They're not biological women. They're not biologically women, hence trans women." So Adnan says he supports third spaces, which is segregation. There's no other way of putting it. Now, many people took to Twitter to criticize him, and his response was to double down. This is a thread he made. To provide some context to the vicious attack from the so-called allies on the left. In the lead up to the Your Party event in Blackburn, we sent out a QR code encouraging people to ask questions about the new party. Questions like the ones below were common, and he shared a screenshot of various messages he's got on WhatsApp. This is one of them. "Hi, a question for Jeremy Corbyn. Please, can he clarify if the single-sex exemptions in the Equality Act are safe with your party and how he envisions gaining the trust of politically homeless women who were previously of the left?" Now, it's worth pointing out, I had a discussion with my producer backstage, that there are many parties that already exist that do that. Why message an MP who could be influential in a new left-wing party about, well, gender-critical and trans-exclusionary political parties? The Conservatives, Reform, and even Labour. They're there. They can go join them. For me, I don't think these people would vote for the left anyway. Because in my experience, and speaking to a lot of people, a lot of TERFs are just right-wing, okay? I don't think there's many radical, feminist, left-wing people who are suddenly just gender-critical. That is very, very rare. A lot of the time, you scratch them and you find out, oh, they're really right-wing on other areas. So I don't think these people would vote for Jeremy Corbyn anyway. He's been had, or what could be worse is he knows he's being had, but he's using it to push a certain narrative. So this will continue the thread. "This is not the first time I've been met with such concerns. Women in my constituency have expressed similar sentiments. I felt that it was an issue that needed addressing, and I feel their voice must not be ignored. I expressed as much. Doing so has led to an attack at times more vicious than what I've become accustomed to from the right. It's a pathetic reaction. Solidarity counts for nothing if it's predicated on people being absolutely obedient and uniform. A mass movement can only be built and succeed if it allows room for differences and adult discussions without the absolute hysteria I've witnessed over the last few days." I mean, I feel like if you're going to be an influential MP in a new political party that could be very popular, if you're struggling to take criticisms on Twitter, you're not cut out for the job. So he has gender critical views, right? And I think calling for third space is just completely transphobic. So this could be a real problem for the new left-wing party. Now, debate and discussion is good. You don't want everyone agreeing. But the problem I have is that certain things are worthy of debate and others are probably not. And these are about people's rights. This isn't debating tax policy or housing. This is about human freedom. Now, for me, my socialism is expanding individual rights and liberty for all, which include trans people. Of course it does. So I'm not sure what angle he's trying to pitch. And also the name, I mean, look, it's not called Your Party, but at the moment they're saying, this is your party. Well, it's your party for people who are not trans, I guess. Now, he said these are his personal views and that the policies will be decided by the members. But what makes this so much worse is that he's had support from Rupert Lowe and Rosie Duffield. It's also worth pointing out that he's also a landlord. So this new party can be a mass membership of people with lots of different ideas, but should a transphobic landlord be involved in a left-wing party? Right? We have Labour, the Tories, and Reform. Go join one of them. They'll take you in. And you can't even go join the Workers' Party because they're communists and he's a landlord. Helena, what are your thoughts on Adnan? And do you think this could be a real problem for the new party?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that people who are members of the bourgeois would be completely refused entry to the Workers' Party, to be honest. I think that they would also probably be pretty amenable to having a bourgeois landlord as a member of the party or as an MP. But it shows you just how disparate all of this was, and that the idea that somehow these people can just become MPs for the new political party entirely off a mandate of being elected as independent candidates for the areas and the seats that they are elected in, and in a lot of cases specifically on a pro-Gaza ticket. Perfectly reasonable ticket. Lots of communities not only been left behind economically by Labour, but have been left behind on foreign policy as well. And that is a representation of Labour abandoning their base, is a representation of the fact these communities have been some of the people who were lost out lots due to austerity, and the unwillingness of Labour to actually properly address those concerns will have turned those communities away. But just because you're somebody who has similar foreign policy opinions, pretty identical foreign policy opinions to the founders of this new party, i.e. Jeremy Corbyn, Zara Sultana, and then the kind of morass of old school Corbyn Loto office type people that surrounds them as well, like, you don't have a divine right to this. And the fact that it's been embraced by Corbyn so quickly, I find very frustrating. But regardless, they don't have a divine right. At the end of the day, I mean, at least Adnan Hussain was right about one thing, which is that the policy should be decided by the members, but also the MPs should be decided by the members. So, for example, I'm a member of the Green Party. If someone wanted to defect to the Green Party from another political party, they would not be allowed to do so unless they got the members to agree to them. We would not accept a new MP unless they were voted on to be accepted by the membership. That should be the case with your party as well. And, for example, if somebody has views that we see as out of kilter with the broad ideas of the membership, they should be a perfectly reasonable idea to block them from being an MP. That counts for the Greens, counts for the new political party, whatever it might be in future. In my opinion, that's how it should work. And also, like, if he says, well, I'll happily just go along with the policies voted on the membership, then that is probably at least something when it comes to his own personal opinions outside of the broader economic policy, which is mostly what this party should be about, foreign and economic policy. If he's happy to compromise on his own personal views on trans people, which I'm perfectly agreeable to being a party with somebody who disagrees on these things personally, but who doesn't put that to the front of policy. One thing that's been really important to understand, especially about the Muslim community in this country, who have been members of the Labour Party in droves, right? They've been heavily wedded to the Labour movement up until the kind of breaking point over Gaza. None of these people ever put their social concerns above the importance of the broader collective bloc of progressives that support multiculturalism and support protections for this community broadly. They understand that their own ideas and their own beliefs and their own social conservatism is a microcosm of their own community, but when it's coming to the broader national programme, they realise that that's for them, not for everybody else. That shouldn't be the case when it comes to this party, and I hope that remains to be the case. But fundamentally, those disagreements on social policy can get hashed out by the membership in due time. And I think that's absolutely fine. And if Adnan Hussain is happy to continue a party line if it gets voted on at conference, sure. But what is indefensible What is indefensible is someone who claims to want socialist working class politics, in fact, derides other people who question him on his social conservatism about not having the same commitment to socialist class politics, working class politics, and being a multiple fucking landlord and a director of multiple real estate companies. Bitch, you are the bourgeois. You are quite literally the enemy of the working class in every respect, especially considering that the housing crisis is the everything crisis, and the most contemptible class within the bourgeois are landlords and people with investments in real estate. You know, social positions aside, those are personal opinions they'll be decided on later. But when it comes to the raw crux of what a socialist working class party should be, you should have representatives in parliament who are socialists and members of the working class, not bourgeois landlords. Like, this doesn't compute at all. Like, the idea that you should have a landlord being a member of an explicitly socialist party, because that doesn't just apply to Adnan Hussain as well. I believe Ayub Khan and Sokrat Adam are also landlords. No, they have no mandate to be in a socialist party if they're landlords. None at all.
So I agree that I don't really have a problem with people being a member of a political party and they've got social conservative views, but they're only members, and we just take their money and we say thanks for the money, but your social conservative views won't go anywhere because the membership decides the policy, right? That is going to, especially if you're trying to build a mass party, you're going to have lots of different opinions. And if you're willing to pay subs for it, right, in return for probably not having your views enshrined into the manifesto or whatever, I'm okay with that. It's the fact that he's already assumed that he's going to be the MP, because he's saying stuff like, well, don't worry, these are my personal views, I will listen to the membership. And that's, to me, is a bit of a problem, because as you've mentioned about the Green Party, you can't be an MP unless it's decided by the Greens. He's acting as if, oh no, I will be your delegate, don't worry. And that's not very democratic. Like, Adnan Hussain is going to these conferences with Jeremy Corbyn as if he's going to be some sort of influential figure. Now, where's the democratic mandate for him to be an MP of your party? That's something I think is a big disconnect, right? And also, there's no guarantee that he would listen to the membership. He can say that, but there's no guarantee.
I mean, if you want to take up on like voting on policies in Parliament already, if you want to have a look at Adnan Hussain and indeed literally every other member of the Independent Alliance that isn't Jeremy Corbyn's and Gerald Sultana's commitment to socialist and progressive economic policy, literally all of them voted against taxing private schools. Yep. I'm sorry, what topsy-turvy working class socialist world is this, where somehow the wealthy are able to essentially tax dodge by spending their money buying a commodity which is solely the preserve of the elite? This is not socialist, it's not working class, and it's not populist in the slightest. Like, the idea that, because literally every single one of them, Iqbal Mohammed, Ayub Khan, Sokrat Adam, and Adnan Hussain, they all voted both against the original budget proposal for VAT on school fees and for a Tory proposed opposition day motion to cancel the VAT on private school fees. This is just elite politics. This is the total opposite of everything that your party should represent.
So I was a bit unfair during the general election. Sorry. I thought the media were unfair during or after the general election, when there was obviously the Independent Alliance or the Independent MPs won. And they said, oh, it's a sectarian vote, and they only won on Gaza. And I dismissed all of it. I thought there was Islamophobic undertones to that, right? And even though on some policy areas, some of the Independent Alliance are not too bad on, right? It's hard to disagree now to say, well, people like Adnan Hussain won purely because of Gaza. And of course, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, because it's hugely important. Our government is complicit in a genocide. But if you're winning just on that ticket, right, then fine, you can be an independent MP and Jeremy Corbyn can work with you on Gaza, or the Green Party can work with Adnan Hussain on Gaza as an independent. But seemingly this might be sectarian. You can't usher them into a new political party when it's more than one policy. It's not just the Gaza party. There's other policies. So do you think that actually there is truth to the sort of sectarian argument there? Or do you think that's still a load of rubbish?
I think it's still just kind of a fact that I think they're just more liberal in their outlook on the economy. I think that's the reality. I think if it was going to be explicitly sectarian, I don't think you'd have Adnan Hussain coming out here and saying, I would happily be willing to do what the membership wants me to do. Because if it was explicitly sectarian, that would be a red line. They would be specifically saying, I am not wanting to join any kind of new party.
Yeah.
I'm not, because otherwise they'd want to join a explicitly sectarian party, which this one is not. They want to remain the independent MP for their area and refuse to engage in politics that isn't specifically on international policy or on the interests of the community, right? I think that whether it's sectarian, I don't think it's necessarily sectarian politics. I think that's an overreach.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's socialist politics. I don't think it's class politics. I don't think it's progressive politics. I mean, Ayub Khan was literally a Liberal Democrat.
Yeah.
As a councillor before he became an MP. So, like, if you're a member of the Lib Dems, can you really be truly properly in with socialist values? Like, not really.
I suppose the time frame matters, because obviously Zack Polanski was a Lib Dem, but I do think it matters. And also, obviously, his politics has changed. He's expressed that. Yeah. You're probably right.
I mean, well, things, yeah, I think you're right. Time frame is important. It's worth pointing out Ayub Khan was a Lib Dem literally up until October the 7th in 2023, when he was removed from the party, I believe, because he had said things about the Hannibal Directive that, of course, turned out to be very much true, and he was expelled for anti-Semitism, which was nonsense. But regardless, he still was a Liberal Democrat up until they told him they weren't going to want him there, rather than Zack Polanski, who left of his own accord and then became a Green, spent a decade in Green Party politics, and then becomes leader. I think these are two different things. I voted for the Dems in 2010. Should that really be hung around my news? Should that news be hung around my neck forever? No.
I can say that I've never ever voted for the Liberal Democrats. I've only ever voted Labour in the Green Party. So, but having said that, you've got one general election on me. My first election was 2015. Maybe if I voted in 2010, I can understand being young and a student, like Liberal Democrats could be enticing.
Never again.
Never again. So Corbyn and Sultana, they're social progressives, right? I mean, what would you expect them to do? What do you think they should do? Because there isn't a structure yet. There's no disciplinary system. So do you think this is going to be a really awkward few months until this new party is formed? Or do you think there's anything they can do? Because I'm seeing, I don't know if it's big, but I'm seeing some people start to kind of turn on Corbyn a little bit, just saying this is really bad. So do you think actually the longer this drags out, this could make Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana look bad? And could this be splits, or what do you think?
I think it's a little too early to potentially look at there being a big kind of rift or a fissure in terms of the party, right? I'm sure they'll find a way together to get around it. They have to do so because they're there for the next 5 years, or the next 4 years, so they've been there for a year already. So those things will get hashed out regardless. I do think that people like Zara and Jeremy will attract, as the figureheads of the party, more progressive people. And then, of course, anyone who does join the party, any MPs that do, will be bound by the motion being passed at conference. What it does tell you, is this is a very slapdash effort of party creation. I mean, this was my initial criticism at the start, that it all felt like it was thrown together at the last minute with no real plan. And that does seem to continue to be the case. People saying, oh, well, Greens are going to have to stand down in a bunch of seats for your party in the future, or the next set of local elections, which is in May. And like, do you think this is a party that's going to be ready to fight local elections in, 2/3 of a year's time, 8 months' time? I think that is really kind of over-egging the pudding. I think if it's taken this long to just even form the idea of what the party should look like, the conference date hasn't been set. We have no idea about what membership looks like. Just a mailing list at this point. Don't even have a name or any policies. And they might think about standing candidates to local elections. This all seems very far-fetched to me.
Yeah, I think if it makes its promises and is a fully democratic party, membership decides policy and even their MPs, then I don't think people like Adnan is a huge issue. Exactly. But that to me is contingent on whether it's actually democratic. That's my view on it. So you're probably
also I just want to clarify as well. Like, I'm not by me saying I don't think they're going to be ready for the local elections in May doesn't think that they're never going to be ready, or they won't get their act together, or there won't be some kind of broader party structure in the future. But this set of local elections is going to be really important, specifically because you looked at the local elections in May. This catapulted reform from the party of protest to the party of opposition, because they had such a kind of landmark defeat of the Conservatives in all these Conservative council defences, 18 of them where they lost. We need to inflict a body blow on Labour in May to be able to change the national conversation about who the insurgents is, because it's all Labour defences: London, Leeds, Manchester, Bristol, Birmingham, right? And whilst I think Birmingham might be very kind of heavily focused on people like your party or whatever it might be, or independent candidates, Bristol, London, Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, these are all going to be like green attacks on Labour. And in first past the post, I want there to be a concerted effort to be able to make sure that we change the narrative to Labour losing votes from the left and not Nigel Farage as the official opposition, which was the narrative that was taken from May. Future elections, whatever, if your party are in a position to start contesting things, I'm all up for negotiations. I'm all up for seeing what that looks like. And I hope they do get their act together, because I value Jeremy and Zara especially in terms of their contribution to politics. But at time of recording, I'm not seeing it.
Quite right. But time will tell. In politics, anything can happen. Let's leave that there. We spent probably a bit longer than we should have on that, so let's rapidly get on to our next story. Yesterday, Zack Polanski was elected to the Green Party leadership role after a huge landslide, winning 85% of the vote. Yet it didn't take long for the attacks to come his way. Labour released 2 attack ads targeting Zack, one on a 12-year-old Sun article. And by the way, when I write the Sun in the script, I always put the star between the S and the N. I'm never writing S-U-N. Fuck him. 12-year-old Sun article and on NATO. Meet Zack Polanski. This is the person who the Greens just elected as the new leader. And as you can see, there's an attached image. It says, has the time come when we can burn all those uncomfortable push-up bras? Hypnotherapist Zack Polanski reckons so. He says he can boost your cup size using the mind alone. This is an extremely new approach, but I can see it becoming popular very quickly because it's so safe and a lot cheaper than the boob job, says Zack. This was then shared by multiple Labour MPs. Joe Stevens MP said, "Oh, it's just awful." Before that, actually, I do happen to think that genocide is awful, something your government is supporting. Rose Writing, she shared that and she said, "So this is who the Greens think should lead their party. Says it all." This is all they have, by the way. A 12-year-old article. Now, Zack went on Good Morning Britain, where they spent the first 3 minutes talking about that article from 12 years ago.
New Green Party leader Zack Polanski, sorry for giving women breast enlargements by hypnosis. Not the start you'd imagine.
Well, I wouldn't believe everything you read in The Sun, and this was a story from about 12 years ago. I've apologised then, apologise now. One of my favourite politicians, Tony Benn, said, I don't care about where you came from, I care about where you're going. And where I'm going is to tackle inequality, to tackle the climate crisis, to lower people's bills.
But just to understand, because of course this would be the first time that very many of our viewers will see you as the Green Party leader. Just explain, at the time, you believed that through hypnotherapy you could enlarge a woman's breasts and charge people for that. What was your thinking then, and how did your thinking change subsequently?
Anyone who believed that would be problematic, and that's nothing I ever believed. I was approached by The Sun. They approached me to say, would you like to do an article about body image? I said yes. I was misrepresented. I apologised a day later. That was 12 years ago, a long time before I was anywhere near politics. And as I say, since then, I have a strong track record of standing up for social justice, standing up to lower people's bills, standing up for marginalised people in this country. And that's a platform I'm very proud to stand on.
So categorically, you never believed through hypnotherapy you could enlarge women's breasts?
I mean, does anyone believe that? And actually, lots of men got in touch with me asking if it could help with other body parts. I've never done it for men. I've never done it for women. And that's not something I believe in. I want to tax multimillionaires and billionaires. I've come on your show on my first day as Green Party leader, and this is the conversation that we want to have.
We're just trying to clear it up.
I've apologised for it. I've said it doesn't represent me.
But did you say to women, you can imagine you have bigger boobs?
No, I didn't say that.
Did you hypnotise or hypnotherapise women to think that?
I've never hypnotised and charged a woman.
Did you tell women to picture themselves with bigger boobs?
This is such an absurd conversation. When these questions come from legacy and mainstream media, it often sounds like it's trying to silence left-wing politicians who are saying, I want to look at inequality in this country. I want to look at the things that actually matter, like the ongoing genocide in Gaza, the fact there's homeless people in the street, the fact I spent a couple of hours yesterday with migrant workers who are saying they're not even being paid a basic wage in this country to run our national health service. But I think these are the things that matter to people.
What I want to know is, why is Ed Balls so interested? I wonder if Labour are attacking Zack because they're jealous of his growth policy. Sorry, I could not myself. That was terrible. Now, legacy media needs to die. And I thought he did a pretty good job trying to get back to the issues. But I tell you what's absurd, right? The government pushes out an attack ad on Zack. Then Ed balls, who is the husband of Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, comes after him with the same attack a day later. This is the problem with the corporate media. It's a joke. How is that accountability when on some occasions he's interviewed his own wife, right? Trust in the media is low, and this is why, right? The corporate media don't want to talk about taxing the rich because it's the same people who own the media who will be affected by those taxes. And people are sick, just sick of this nonsense. Now, Labour's second attack ad was on Zack's views on NATO. They tweeted, "New Green Party leader Zack Polanski seeks to undermine our membership of NATO. At such a serious time, this is completely irresponsible position to take." Now, I actually would consider that a smear because that's not really what Zack said. His view on NATO is nuanced. It's not to just unilaterally leave. Plus, we do need a broad conversation about independence from Washington on our foreign policy. I mean, isn't that what all the right-wingers do? And Nigel Farage say, let's take back control, right? Well, you want to take back control and hand it to Trump because you're best mates with Trump. So actually, I think it's a sensible conversation to say, maybe we can have sovereignty over our own foreign policy. Now, Tom Watson, I mean, he's usually been pretty quiet, but he's decided to weigh in on the election. Takeover complete. I mean, he's joking, right? I mean, how is this a takeover? Zack was the deputy leader, right? He was part of the team that won 4 MPs and 800 councillors. He won 85% of the vote, so he won with existing and new members. It's the exact same arguments used against Jeremy Corbyn. Now, Tom Watson, he likes hostile takeovers. He doesn't mind when it's the corporations and big business taking over the party of Labour, but when it's the membership deciding, well, that's terrible. Now, I caught up with Zack earlier today to discuss his victory and the media attacks. Zack, congratulations on your huge landslide win to become Green Party leader. How do you feel?
I feel amazing. It still hasn't quite sunk in. And honestly, coming to turn left feels a little bit like a victory lap. I've spent the last 2 days going on lots of hostile media organisations, which have been good to speak to, but it's really, really nice to feel like in some ways I'm coming home.
Look, you've won the leadership. Your focus then was on the membership, right? But now you don't need to do that. You need to focus on all voters. How do you win over those voters, especially those who don't identify as left-wing or have never considered themselves a Green or wanting to vote for the Green Party before?
I think it's by focusing on policy, a relentless focus on inequality. We need to tax wealth and not work. And what I mean by that is making sure we've got a wealth tax, we're nationalising our public services, that we're challenging inequality in our workplaces, so we're standing by trade unions and in solidarity. We know all of these things are popular across the British public. Very often people are put off by it because not the ideas of the policies, but they're worried that the Green Party can't win. This was in the past. And I think what we really have to demonstrate, and we have shown, is that where we do campaign, we can and we will win. So it's really about maximising this right across England and Wales and building up that membership base.
Yeah, so the day of your election, Labour ramped up their attacks. They first started with that Sun article, which has been misrepresented. Now they're saying you oppose NATO. What's your response to their attacks?
I mean, the first thing is it's quite flattering, right? The party of government could be doing anything with their time, like dealing with homelessness or challenging the fact that our NHS is crumbling or not arming a genocide in Gaza. But no, what are they actually doing? They are sending petty tweets out rather than, what has traditionally been in this country, a congratulations to the new leader of the party. I didn't particularly want that from the Labour Party. But the idea that straight out the gate, they went on the attack. I've also heard an MP today as well wrote a whole op-ed piece attacking me too. And do you know what? I'm incredibly flattered. I think these are all things that show this Labour Party are absolutely threatened and rattled by the Green Party. And so they should be. And that's exactly where they should be. On the actual substance of the issue that you're talking about, Green Party policy is to stay in NATO and reform it from within. That reform is around denuclearizing, so everyone giving up their nuclear weapons. If we can make that happen, I'd still absolutely, totally support that. And that is my view. Since we made that policy, though, Donald Trump has been elected as president of the White House. Or president of America in the White House. It's been a long day. This is a misogynist, racist, fascist. And yes, we should have democratic relationships with him or diplomatic relationships. He is the elected president of the United States, but we don't need to give him a state visit.
And when we look at NATO and the fact he's threatening to annex Greenland, I think the real conversation we have to have right now is what does it look like to turn to our European neighbours and rebuild relationships that have been so badly damaged by Brexit, a catastrophic mistake, and actually go, what does it look like when we build new alliances based on peace and diplomacy? Now, the timescale for that could be 5, 10, 15 years. I'm not sure. That would be up to experts in geopolitics to come together. But the one thing I'm absolutely sure of is the world has never felt more unstable in our lifetimes as it does right now. And burying our head in the sand and pretending everything is going to be okay through an extensive use or might, as Keir Starmer says, and the £15 billion of nuclear weapons, it's absolutely absurd and perilously dangerous.
Now, I saw you on GMB earlier on today. They also ran with the Labour attacks. It was Ed Balls you were with, right? Ed Balls, who's married to Yvette Cooper, who was the Home Secretary, amplifies an attack from this government. It's utterly absurd. I mean, did you expect these attacks from the media so early on?
I did expect the attacks. We know that when they feel threatened, they will lash out. And the Green Party are there to challenge power and wealth in this country, to upend the status quo. And we know the status quo and the establishment that protects it will do everything they can to smear, to stop, to attack. And I think, that to a point is part of the political game. But also, these tactics worked a few years ago. I think we're in a fundamentally different time now. We know that people are sick of the two old parties and people are looking for difference. And so I think this is a huge moment to build the Green Left, to say we're going to look at doing politics differently. And the shamelessness of the interrogation, it's right that I'm scrutinised, it's right that I'm held accountable, but the fact that this is by a former Shadow Chancellor demonstrates many of the problems that there are with legacy media. And I'd naturally say this because I'm on Turn Left, but I think you guys are a key part of the solution. We need to build that ecosystem of politicians, of progressive movements, and of independent media that is not invested interest to multimillionaires and billionaires. It's a good moment to say, if you can give a regular donation to Turn Left, I'm not paid to say this, but it's really important that we fund independent media because it plays a vital role in holding politicians to account. And that includes me, by the way. I don't expect special treatment, but anyone that you get across the radar, because that's actually how we're going to get a much better political system.
So there's obviously been a massive rightward shift. Far right politics is coming back in a big way. First of all, I want to get your response to that. What do you think? But also, do you have a message to people who feel like, especially minoritized communities, who feel like no one represents them or speaks up for them? I mean, Keir Starmer, for example, has thrown everyone under the bus, trying to chase the sort of mythical reform voters he's never going to get. So your response to this resurgence in far-right politics and your message to people who feel like there was no one speaking out for them.
Well, the first thing is we beat the fascists before in this country and we will absolutely beat them again, but we will only do it through community organising, through solidarity, through recognising that we are so much stronger when we are together than when people try and rip our communities apart. Second thing I'd say is that Keir Starmer should have condemned Nigel Farage's outrageous press conference the other day. Not only did he not condemn it, he implicitly condoned it. I don't get what he doesn't get about politics. If people want toxic, divisive politics and hatred about migrants, there is a party that exists that they can vote for. If people want bland, bureaucratic, technocratic triangulation, then sure, the Labour Party exists, but I'd suggest that might be why they're plummeting in the polls. But much more seriously, I would say to people who are scared right now, who feel like the world and the country is dangerous right now, or not just even feel it, it is dangerous right now, particularly if you're one of those people seeking asylum that has those protests right outside your hotel, that we have your back. The Green Party will always go out and bat for you. We will never, never abandon you. We will never take a different road just because the conversation is difficult. If you're a migrant, if you're trans, if you're disabled, if you're not in work, whatever it might be, all these groups that are so demonized. And if you're feeling politically homeless, then today is the day to join the Green Party. We have hit over 68,000 members. I'd love to see in the next week or two us hit even bigger targets and keep growing. So if ever you've been waiting for the moment to join the Green Party, take this moment right now at join.greenparty.org.uk.
Finally, I want to ask you, you've obviously been very much involved in independent media. Our audience are very familiar with you. I mean, even years ago when you were deputy leader, 2 years ago when we interviewed you, you've given us your time plenty. But you're now the leader of the Green Party. Tell me what your plans are to bring in sort of the use of independent media as part of the Green Party and also part of the left-wing machine, because we need to take on the establishment and the far right. I understand that you have started a podcast called Bold Politics.
Yeah, I'm really excited to launch that today. In fact, I'm the first political leader to have their own podcast. Each week, I'm going to be talking to people right across the political spectrum, people that I agree with and some people that I disagree with. At the beginning, it's largely going to be people that are famous and people that people know. But I also want to be really clear that my dream for the podcast is, as it builds its audience, I really want to actually platform workers' voices, people from marginalized communities' voices, and make sure their stories are out there too. Part of this is about setting the political agenda. I was just asked by a journalist, and I thought it was a fair question. They said, is it not worrying, though, that if you're setting up your own podcast, you're trying to avoid scrutiny? And I want to be really clear that setting up the podcast is my way of setting the agenda. But I absolutely want scrutiny too. I'm still going to be going on people's podcasts. Don't worry, I'll be on Turn Left Media. And indeed, I'll be going to places that might be less friendly to me too, because I do think it's important as an elected politician, you are there to answer questions in a fair way about your record and what you intend to do. More widely, as leader of the Green Party, I'm really looking forward to working with the Media Reform Coalition. They're doing lots of work, particularly around political funding, funding of media, making sure that they're not in hock to vested interests, that the regulators have bigger teeth or stronger teeth, sharper teeth, that's the word, and are really, really doing the job they need to do. And then I think there's a whole question about the BBC, something called the mutualisation of the BBC, which is accepting right now that the people who are on the board of the BBC or the chairs are chosen by governments. That's absolutely outrageous, because their job should be to hold the government to account. What mutualisation would look like is a group of people, probably decided by sortition. That's the same as a jury system, where it's randomly selected through the public, maybe for a year or 2 years. They are paid to sit on the board to scrutinise the output and check it is balanced, it is fair, and it is representing what people want in this country. I think there's a huge conversation to have around media, but I'm really pleased to see independent media is really having its moment, it's flourishing. I think the old media is crumbling, and it's time for these new voices.
Zack, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me, and thanks, as always, Kurtz, for everything you did.
So that was Zack kindly giving me his time. Helena, what do you make of the attacks from Labour and the media? Do you think that any of it is going to land?
No, I really don't. I think that most people will see what it is as just lazy attacks on character because they can't contend on policy. I think that's the reality of this. I think the NATO attacks might actually land a bit harder than the hypnoboob stuff, because I think at a time of geopolitical insecurity and there's pretty large support for NATO in the UK, it may put more people off than it will win over. This is why when Jeremy Corbyn ran in 2017 and 2019, they maintained commitment to NATO, maintained commitment to Trident replacement, all that kind of malarkey. But the issue is that people aren't actually engaging with Zack's real point here. Like, Zack's real point here is that the replacement for NATO should be some kind of European defensive pact, because we can't trust America. He's not saying don't have a defensive pact. He's not saying don't have any kind of agreement with which to ensure that there is some kind of mutual defense agreement with other countries with similar geopolitics, you know? He's not saying any of this. But what he is saying is that you can't trust Trump when he is being a belligerent, an explicit belligerent. Obviously, NATO has always been implicitly belligerent. That's why the Green Party platform at time of recording, as voted on by members, is NATO reform internally. Whereas, of course, the previous platform was to leave NATO. In the 2000s, for example. So I think that it's an easy soundbite that they'll use to attack him and may win some people over, right? The soundbite will just be Polanski wants us to be a victim to Putin and Russia and China or whatever, when the reality is far more complex than that. But the hypnoboob stuff, I think people are going to see it for the lazy smear that it is, in the same way they lazily tried to smear Jeremy Corbyn in 2017 and failed.
Yeah, I probably agree. The NATO stuff feels like it might have more concrete stuff behind it, because obviously the NATO boob, it's new. The boob stuff, it's like, well, it's just like a bit of drama, and people don't really pay attention. But of course, this could be an opportunity for Zack to widen up the debate on our foreign policy. As I was saying before the interview clip, about how our foreign policy is so tied to America, there could maybe be a discussion there. I suppose that'll be potentially opening a can of worms. Does he want to go down that route? Or maybe just sort of ignore the attacks and focus mainly on eco-populism?
I think that's the right thing. Again, I liked during the interview that we saw there, between Polanski and Balls. Polanski was like, no, let's talk about the issues that matter. Let's talk about the issues that matter to people, you know? Because at the end of the day, just when he said on the stage at his acceptance of the leadership on Tuesday morning, where he's explicitly like talking, these are the issues that I want to talk about affordability, about the cost of living, about the genocide in Gaza, the welfare state, all these things that the Labour Party are losing their base on. And I think it'll be very easy for him to win Labour voters over on that message, and by rising above the tittle-tattle of the media, especially when very few people actually pay attention to the mainstream media nowadays. This is why his point about independent media was so strong, and why we have to ensure that we have a much bigger platform to be able to fight the right wing on. Otherwise, their funding of an astroturfing of social media figures that was instrumental in getting Trump into the White House, for example, that they're trying to do in the UK with GB News and the like, will defeat us. We will not win in a landscape which is set by the big deep pockets of the right wing funding. And so and also I think it's worth pointing out as well, like if you're watching this show, it's you probably own a camera phone. It's very easy to just start making TikToks yourself. It's where a lot of the discussion happens nowadays. It's one of the most viewed social media apps in the country. It doesn't cost you anything to start talking about progressive policy. Start reposting stuff from people like Zack, from people like Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn, to talk about your opinions. Clip us, clip this show, clip my show, clip from Novara, from Politics Joe, whatever, and make sure that you're getting more of the information out in the sphere from the independent media to ensure that there are more voices than just Nigel Farage.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you're watching this, if you have a TikTok account, please clip this show, clip Helena's channel, any other progressive media outlet, clip it, share it. We want to see as much left-wing content as possible. I think this is probably a good time to go on to our fundraiser. So please remember to like the stream. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, hit that button. Now, if you want us to grow, then you can head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly, or follow the other link to give us a one-time contribution. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. But let's go on to our final story. Comedian and Father Ted writer Graham Linehan was arrested at Heathrow Airport yesterday over tweets he made about trans people. Writing on Substack, Linehan said that after flying into the UK from Arizona, he was detained by 5 armed officers at Heathrow Airport and put in a cell before being questioned over posts published on Twitter, I'm not going to say X, in April. Now, there have been many people, especially the right wing, claiming this is another crackdown on free speech. But as with most things, there's obviously nuance, and those trying to make it a simple black and white issue are being dishonest. Now, for me, I do think offensive opinions should be protected, but when they could be seen as incitement, I think there's a genuine discussion to be had here. Now, this was one of the 3 tweets that supposedly led to his arrest. If a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act. Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls. Now, it's the final part of that tweet, which you could say, well, that goes beyond opinion. Linehan, who does have a following, is encouraging people to punch trans women. And by the way, Linehan is one of the worst transphobes in this country. He's on par with J.K. Rowling. I'm not sure who's worse, right? But basically, he's a really, really terrible person. Now, as well as the right wing coming in with their performative outrage right on cue, there have been some on the left who have also criticised his arrest. Co-founder of Novara Media, James Butler, said, Graham Linehan is an unpleasant character whose pathologically loathing of trans people has destroyed his own life. His online presence is a sordid gutter of monomania. Detaining him at the border for this is stupid, illiberal, counterproductive, and authoritarian. Owen Jones tweeted, I think that Graham Linehan is beyond awful. We should not be arresting people for hateful things they say online. It's not a solution for these problems, and trusting an increasingly authoritarian state to be the arbiter of acceptable speech is a major mistake. Even the US Congressman Ro Khanna disagreed. Glenna arrest is an offence to anyone who supports free speech. I guess UK has not learned from the time prosecutors read passages of the picture of the Dorian Gray to convict Oscar Wilde. Now, they have faced criticism for this take, but if I'm honest, I do think they kind of make a point, which is that, look, the left have always been either highly critical or have had full-blown opposition to the state. So you could see how this would be in line with anti-statist views. But having said that, right, Just Stop Oil activists were jailed for 5 years for having a Zoom meeting about a protest. Just today, a pro-Palestine activist was arrested for making a Zoom call or planning to have a Zoom call about a protest. So, like, it would be two-tier if incitement is ignored. Now, what I find ironic is that I've shown examples of people on the left being against Linehan being arrested. Yet, can you show me a single right-winger who's come out against the arrest of people holding Palestine Action placards peacefully protesting? Even those who simply wore the Palestine football shirts have faced arrest. Nothing from them because they never cared about free speech. Helena, do you think it was right that Linehan was arrested?
I feel like I'm in the fucking Twilight Zone, Curtis. The discussion around this has genuinely made me lose my mind, right? So, proportionality. Let's talk proportionality here, where I think all of us can come to some agreement. There was no reason to have him arrested at the border. Of course, this was done by armed officers because they were at an airport and all airport officers are armed. So they weren't specifically armed for him, which is a take that I've seen around, right? But you don't need 5 of them and you don't need to have it at the border. Send him a letter for summons, right? Over a tweet, if you want to do that. That's absolutely perfectly reasonable. It should have been handled far more delicately and didn't need to turn into this fucking spectacle that it became when, again, it is just a tweet, right? But the idea that this isn't incitement, when we've just had Lucy Connolly charged over similar kinds of incitement, is crazy. Like, what Graham Linehan tweeted out, in my opinion, is far worse than what Lucy Connolly tweeted. Lucy Connolly said something as a throwaway comment, which said, do something for all I care. That wasn't an explicit instruction. That didn't direct anybody to do it. It was a throwaway comment and she was angry at the time. I believe she's a racist, obviously, but like, what he did was, in my opinion, a direct instruction to his followers. You should do this thing. I do not buy for a moment that this was a joke or this wasn't serious, right? I know what this man's views of trans people is. I know. I've seen his tweets. I have seen the way in which he vilifies this community and people like me. I know his opinions of what we are or what we potentially are. And the idea that he would call, because it would stand to reason that if you hold the kind of views about trans women that Graham Linehan does, that you would feel like these people were a genuine threat. People like me were a genuine threat towards us. And therefore, you would think of using self-defense as like the best defense as a good offense, for example, whatever it might be, right? It looks to me that that's a direct command to his audience, to his 600,000 followers at time of recording, I believe, to go out and commit violence against trans people. If this was literally any other minority, if he talked about punching Jews, do you think that we'd be having this conversation? No. If he talked about punching Polish people, would we have this conversation? No. As soon as it's trans people, though, as soon as it's people that the media have had a concerted smear campaign around, manufacturing consent for the eventual kind of targeted attacks that will come, when we've just seen what happened to Brianna Jai, for example, a couple of years ago, like, they've been manufacturing consent to smear all trans women as being perverts and paedophiles and completely kind of deranged individuals. And do you think people won't act on these kind of actions? This is the reality. We're the only minority that this kind of language would be acceptable about, apart from maybe Romani, right? Which is the only, and the media narrative has been, Graham Linehan has been arrested for his views on trans people or for tweeting in a gender critical manner. No, it was incitement to violence he got arrested for, and the charge had been fucking dropped anyway. Joke country. Like, sure, I can have these arguments about whether incitement should be a criminal offence, whatever it might be. I think that it should be. I think that we shouldn't be having what is, in my opinion, stochastic terrorism being allowed, regardless of whether it's in writing, whether it's on speech, or whether it's in less than 140 characters on social media. The platform is irrelevant to me. We can have that discussion. But if we already have the precedent that for what things like Lucy Connolly has said being incitement, how this cannot apply to the tweets, or the specific tweet that we're referencing here, in my mind, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that one of these can be counted as incitement and the other can't be.
Well, for the right wing, it's free speech for me, not for thee. So their crying over Lucy Connolly was because she was one of them. And this time it's like, well, Graham Linehan is one of them too, so he should get the same treatment. So if a left winger said something equally as bad,
Like punch Zionists, for example, right?
you would see the right wing meltdown. But that's not what's frustrating me with this discussion. I think what frustrates me is if you're coming at this as an anti-status or anarchist point of view that the state shouldn't have that much power, I understand that logic. What I don't understand is, and this is what you said about how trans people are one of the few minorities where you can literally punch down without any consequence. That is so true, because I've seen people who say, I don't think it was, oh, he's a really bad person, really, really horrible person. I don't think he was inciting, or I don't think it was like a hate crime. And people are saying, but this was against a minority. And people are like, yeah, but, and I'm just thinking, but if you replaced the word trans person with Jew or black person, no one would question that that's out of order. So I do think that maybe people have a kind of they're slightly blinded, right? There's a blind spot here that it's kind of acceptable for trans people. That's what I think. So if you're consistently saying, look, it's because I want freedom from the state, and that's your logic, I understand it. I think it's a good argument. I think when you're saying, and I have seen people who call themselves on the left as well, and they probably are left wing. They say he's an arsehole, but I don't think that's bad. I do wonder if you were to replace the minority with Jewish person or black, you would get a different response. I think that's categorically what would be the case.
Oh yeah, I think like there is no level of consistency on any side. If, like, for example, if someone had said something very similar about Zionists, for example, you should go and punch a local Zionist. Like, if they did something, that would also be unacceptable. I would also say that under the same kind of guise as way we treat Lucy Conley, and the way that Graham Linehan was treated and then is now not being treated because the charges have been dropped. I think that these should all be carrying the same kind of weight regardless of your political background. And that's the consistency that I have. But the thing is, as you pointed out earlier, there is no consistency when it comes to the right wing. Should there be custodial sentences? Should their sentences be as long as Lucy Conley got, for example? These are all debates that I'm very, very happy to have. Should it have been a prison sentence at all? Potentially not. Maybe it should have been community service, whatever. Maybe that would have been better for her as a person in the Lucy Conley case. And maybe there should be some community service for Graham if this wasn't something he got convicted of. All this up in the air, because the charges have been dropped. I mean, these are all conversations perfectly reasonable for us to have. But the fact that someone from what I can see, in my opinion, is just openly advocate for violence, just get off scot-free, and then they only be acceptable in the case because trans people are the target. Like, I cannot see an oppositional argument to this, other than just trans people are icky, and I agree with him, which is what most people seem to think.
I think that is what it comes down to. Let's go to our producer for your comments. There's going to be some really interesting discussions here. Ben, are you there?
Yes, sorry. Struggling to find the producer page because
oh, sorry. Yeah.
I don't know how to actually use this software. Right. Okay.
Long enough.
Yeah. I should know by now. Okay.
You're very loud, by the way, Cog. You're very loud.
Oh, I'm really okay. Shall I see if I can turn down? I'm gonna try to turn the gain down on my mic. See if that helps.
Okay, perfect.
Cool. How's that? Is that a bit better?
No, it's way too quiet. Halfway between where you were before.
Halfway between. How about that?
There we go.
That's good.
Well
That's
done.
good.
All right. Cool. Awesome. Sorry for anybody's eardrums that I just blew out in the last couple of minutes. I hope we still have an NHS in 5 years so that you can afford to get surgery done on your ears. Okay, cool. So starting with some super chats. Rachel Atwood gave $2 and said, "Unless you're bionic, you're a biological woman." I guess unless you're a biological man or a biological non-binary person, but yes, if you're a woman and then you and unless you're a bionic, you're a biological woman. That's correct. Specs Bean Farmer gifted 5 turn left memberships. We appreciate you, Specs. We see you. We love you.
Always consistent, Specs. We love you.
Oh yes, and so is Carl, who also gifted 5 turn left memberships. It's absolutely lovely to see. Thank you so much. And also thank you to Curious Girl Emma, who gave £10.
Yes. Oh, you legend. Thank you so much, Emma. Much
Turn Left doing amazing work. Keep it up. Thank you, Emma. That means a lot coming from you, especially in the context of like the conversation that's been going on. Right. Let's go to some of the regular comments. Starter comments. Here we go. So, Elliot B added the important context to that last story that given the amount of violence against trans people that exists, incitement to carry out violence is a crime. I thought it was important to highlight that Elliot's correct here, saying that saying that it's within the context of the environment that we're living in, and the same with Lucy Connolly and refugees. By the way, I think that's important to highlight. But I won't ask you for comment on that one. I am interested to know, though, as Luna correctly pointed out, the Prime Minister took Linehan's side in PMQs today, so he will be fine. JK will make sure of it, no doubt. And I wanted to ask, what do you two make of Keir Starmer siding with probably one of the least popular people in the country?
I mean, at the end of the day, looking at every single action of this Labour government from then up until now, there's a fly in the ointment, really. Yeah. But if at this point you're still wanting to see the Labour Party re-elected, then you don't like trans people. It's as simple as that. Like, the reality is you cannot be a supporter, a member, campaigner, a donor, an advocate for the Labour Party whilst maintaining your support for trans people. The two things at this point in time are mutually exclusive. You cannot claim to support the rights of trans people given what this government is doing to take them away, and to again literally be out here defending people who call for us to be punched. Like, I'm sorry, you cannot. The red line's been drawn.
Absolutely not surprised that Keir Starmer's done that. And he's done it because he thinks that's probably the popular opinion, right? And he's trying to, and also he's trying to dog whistle himself with the right wing. I reckon he watches GB News every day now and he's thinking, this is the opinion of GB News. I need to show that I'm in touch with these people. I honestly think it's GB News. Not that he necessarily believes all of it, but I think this is how I get in touch with people. And it's like, that leads him to the conclusion of the right-wing opinion of pretty much everything. Am I surprised that Keir Starmer sided with Linehan? Absolutely not. Former human rights lawyer, someone who wants to be some sort of statist and guy who knows about the law, he doesn't give a fuck about it. That's
the thing, it's like
a moral vacuum.
When it comes to like legal shit as well, like Shabana Mahmood talking about like all the crackdowns that she's doing. Oh, they'll truly crack down on all the ne'er-do-wells, take on antisocial behaviour, all these expanded powers, all these extra police. Oh, what? A famous person, in my opinion, advocated for violence against trans people. Oh, well, we'll let that slide, shall we? Oh, really? Oh, well, turns out the two-tier Keir slurs were right all along. Literally, again, like for every single line they have about crackdowns in terms of like the strong arm of the law, it's only being applied in one direction.
Yep.
I totally agree with both of you. But I did also see a tweet that pointed out that Graham Linehan is even unpopular among other transphobes. Like even other transphobes find him embarrassing. And this just highlights that Keir Starmer has the political instincts of a deck chair. Like, he just the worst political instinct of anybody. And by the way, we received quite a bit of pushback in the chat on quite a serious point that you raised, Curtis. You can't go around calling Graham Linehan a comedian. Jim Speaks said,
sorry,
you forgot to pronounce the air quotes around comedian.
Okay,
and,
so I need to do an apology video.
Corton of Coldus said Linehan has a funny face, but calling him a comedian is a stretch.
Okay, so tomorrow I'm going to release an apology video. The title will be The Apology. I had a blind spot there for calling a comedian who wasn't funny. I was thinking about saying at the beginning, he's not popular with anyone because he's just a straight up loser as well. Now, I think being a transphobe makes you a loser in of itself, but he's a special kind of loser. Him going on trigonometry and saying, I can't afford parking tickets. I'm like, you did that to yourself, mate, because you're an arsehole. You did that to yourself. Your family left you because they hate you. And now you've gone into some weird, fucked up spiral of hatred because you've got nothing left. I'm thinking of Ian Beale from EastEnders. I've got nothing left. That's who he is.
There is a moment where there's literally a moment where he's on the Nolan show, I think, in Belfast, and he starts crying. He's like, they took my family, and I'm just like, you did that to yourself, mate.
To yourself.
Chronically divorced.
Very, very divorced.
You know what? I may have fewer rights than I did 5 years ago, but at least I've still got family. Which is more we can say for Graham.
More than you can say for Graham.
I love that. We need to clip that moment. Kat pointed out that all the cops at the airport are armed. So focusing on that is stupid. They didn't arm themselves specifically for him. And I think that is a fairly good point, actually. They didn't need to arrest him at the airport. But since they did arrest him at the airport, of course, the police there are going to be armed.
Yeah, but the right wing obviously need to paint a narrative, right? They always need to heighten up the tensions and say, "Oh my God, they've got arms. They're armed. They got guns for a tweet." And it's very simplistic and it's very overhyped. But nuance don't work on these kinds of people. They just don't. They're dummies.
Sorry, what's a nuanced? Yeah, so
don't know, type of cake or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So Jacqueline said, "Oh no, I think I've actually sorry, Jacqueline, I've actually starred one of your tweets by accident. One of your comments by accident. There, Lara said, "I won't vote for your party with that man in the party. I'm so sick of having to put up with people who hate me when no other demographic is expected to." And this kind of related to what Helena was saying about like the acceptability of Graham Linehan's tweet and people coming out and going, "Oh well, he should be allowed to say it, free speech." Trans people are it's just sort of accepted that you can attack trans people, or that you can you can just have blatant transphobia in a party. And you wouldn't expect this of any other minority. I don't know if you guys want to jump in on that.
I mean, the only other minority that it's acceptable for is Jewish anti-Zionists, really. You look at what the Labour Party was like, If you don't fit the acceptable idea of what this particular minority represents, out you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think India Willoughby made a really good point in the first tweet where she said, "We are not a discussion to be had." And I think that you wouldn't have a discussion. I mean, maybe you would 50 years ago, 60 years ago, but the absurdity to say, look, we can have black men in third toilets. I'm not being excluded. They have their own space. Like, you see how absurd that is. Yet we can have that casual conversation with trans people. And that's where you're right. It's trans people and, probably anti-Zionist Jews who have been persecuted from the Labour Party, by the way, the so-called... those, Keir Starmer and those around him want to clear out anti-Semitism. Well, you also cleared out a lot of Jewish people because they had anti-Zionist sentiments, and that flagged up as anti-Semitic in your view. What a fucked up world.
Yeah, I wanted to put this to you guys because JK in the chat, sorry, not JK Rowling, JK in the chat, was
the lead singer of Jamiroquai is in the chat.
Yes. The only famous
Big
JK
fan.
that we care about. So JK was in the chat, and basically JK was saying, look, if I'm taking a diplomatic approach, I'd say that JK was saying that, like, why are you turning on the Corbyn party when it hasn't even, the Your party, when it hasn't even found its feet yet? And said, okay, turn left, you've convinced me. Your party is shit. I give up. March on reform. How would you two respond to this?
I mean, well, neither of us necessarily said that your party was like shit. We just said that at time of recording, it's a bit of a mess. We both made the explicit caveat in our responses here that however many years down the line, months down the line, however long it takes to get the structure of the party together, we'll see and we'll make judgments then. But we can only make judgments now about what we've seen up to this point. And obviously there's been some good moments, but there's been quite a lot of cringe moments too. So again, the proof will be in the pudding. And that was the point that both me and Curtis made. So I don't know where they're pulling this from.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the idea that criticizing something doesn't mean you have opposition to it as well. I mean, that's just jumping the shark. Like, I've signed up to the Your Party website to get emails. We are going to be, we're still very close with the team. We're going to be covering as much rallies as they can and conversations. Expect that we'll be speaking to Jeremy Corbyn again. Like, this isn't abandoning Your Party or trying to shit on it or whatever. It's just being objective. It's important to have objective reporting. If you see something that's wrong, it will be a disservice to not point it out. And remember, at the end of the day, the people who we should serve are ordinary people, not institutions or politicians. They serve us. So who do I care more about? Do I care about ordinary working class people and trans people, or do I care about a political It's not a political party, it's a brand. So who am I going to put first? I'm going to put people first, aren't I? And it's up to your party, or whatever they're called, to be responsive of that. Now, that doesn't mean I don't support the project. I absolutely support the project. I'm still not a Green Party member. I refuse to be a member of a political party because I want to be sort of more objective. Well, there you can say kind of what you want in the Green Party, right? So I've openly said I support Zack Polanski's bid as leader of the Greens, and I support Jeremy Corbyn, Zara Sultana, and your party, but I want the party to be the best it can be. And if Adnan Hussain is saying transphobic stuff, I can't ignore it. And also in terms of March at Reform, like, you do have an alternative to your party. It is the Green Party. They do have 4 seats. They have 800 councillors. So in absence of your party, and if that goes to shit, you do have the Greens and try and grow that. If your party becomes successful, fantastic. We've got a red-green alliance. But I do find it frustrating where online conversations are always so black and white. And I feel like, JK, I respect you because you're a regular viewer. Just don't jump the shark when we criticize them. It's not opposition to the sport. And by the way, this is probably the best time to criticize them. We're 4 years away from a general election. The last thing you want is massive infights and discussions like this when there's an election happening. Right now, as the party's being built, this is the time to have these debates and discussions ready for the election, and then it can be pristine by that time.
100% agree.
Awesome. I did want to provide just a counter perspective to that one. Keith Prince said, actually, I found trans rights very popular. We had the largest turnout for a demo in Norwich following the court ruling on trans people. Many people just joined while out shopping. I just think it's important to sort of show.
Well, when we covered the rally when the Supreme Court ruling happened, it was the first big rally supporting trans people, and obviously we covered it, right? It was massive, right? Way more than anyone expected. The organisers didn't expect it to be so much. We didn't expect it to be so many people. It was incredible, and it was fucking inspiring. So, like, Twitter, the internet is becoming more and more real life, but Twitter still isn't completely real life because majority of people are still, I think, are broadly right, and the amount of people specifically on that day, like, raised hairs on the back of my neck. I couldn't believe how many people came out and supported trans people, and that was on the day after, I think, or the couple of days after the Supreme Court ruling.
I think as well, like, so much of the media in this country, obviously the media itself is very transphobic, but also a lot of the discussion is being had amongst people of older generations. And when you look at the statistics, they're far less likely to be pro-trans, right? So it dominates the discourse. When if you look at, for example, people under the age of 35, they're very pro-trans. And how much of them do you actually see talking about this on the media? Very little. Not only do they not have input in terms of our media class a lot of the time, but also when you do they do vox pops and they try and get like people off the streets to talk about it, they don't usually get young people then either. So I feel like there's a big generational divide here too.
True.
It's a really good point, especially with regards to who has power within the media and society at the moment. So Rachel said Corbyn is a bad judge of character. Sorry, he's deeply naive. Do you think this is a fair criticism of Corbyn in terms of his relationship with Adnan Hussain? Because we kind of didn't sort of touch on Corbyn specifically. I think maybe there's something to this. I'm open to the idea, but just giving my perspective, I don't think that it necessarily tarnishes Corbyn at this point. I think how he reacts going forward is what's gonna call it for me. But I don't know how you two are feeling about it.
You got any thoughts, Curtis?
Well, I don't. I mean, I'm not him. I'm not inside his head. What I can say is the criticism of Jeremy Corbyn during his leadership of the Labour Party and outside, people said that he was maybe weak or too nice. Everything I say right now is obviously hypothetical, or I can't get inside his head. Maybe he's maybe has a friendship with Adnan, right? He's probably got a nice relationship with him over Gaza, right? They bonded over their opposition to the genocide, and they've worked with each other. So he's probably formed a human bond, right? And they've obviously had discussions. They probably said, yeah, let's create a party together. And now he might be thinking, how do I separate myself politically from this person who I've got a bond with. Now, of course, you might say, well, it's important to stick to your politics. Absolutely agree. Maybe it's that. I don't really know. I do agree with you, Ben, that I don't think we should be holding Jeremy Corbyn like to account for this. I mean, he deserves criticism. He's part of the same political project. But like, to me, I haven't been turned off from Jeremy Corbyn. You know, he's probably in a tough bind as well. I think at the end of the day, we need to judge the results. If this new party is fully democratic, has the right policies, and Adnan Hussain's social conservative views doesn't become popular because ordinary members decide, then Jeremy Corbyn has accomplished what he wanted to do, which is create a new party of socialists or just ordinary working class people. And I think that's great. If not, then I guess we judge when we get to that point.
Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, I agree.
Go on, Helena. Sorry.
No, yeah, I fundamentally, I think that's right. Like, I've been saying from the start that I think Corbyn should be a co-leader of the party. Loads of people want him to lead the party. I think it's a really bad idea. I don't think he's leadership material. I think that Zara is doing a really good job of getting the word out there. Her appearances on media have been very, very good so far. I think that I would like to see her take the reins on the party and let Corbyn be a chair, be a person who is a kind of a person who corrals people around the cause rather than necessarily a leader again. Because he kind of didn't want to be leader of Labour in the first place. He was just pushed to be so because he was one of the rotating SCG members who just stood for the leadership election to make a point. And then it just turns out he was the only person who opposed Harriet Harman's desire to abstain on George Osborne's welfare bill, and that catapulted him to first place because of the membership wanting at least some opposition to massive amounts of extra poverty which the cuts inevitably caused, you know. So he was there mostly due to chance in terms of that regard. And so having someone who truly does show leadership qualities and ambitions for leadership, which Sarah certainly does, is far more of what I want to see.
Yeah, like the person that I'm sort of most, and I think most vitriol should be like directed toward right now, is Adnan Hussain, who I'm sorry, I think he's a dick. I really do. He's pro-life. He's coming out defending his transphobia, and by the way, using the same defenses of his transphobia, which people who are against refugees use, which is like, oh, I'm listening to the concerns of women and girls. You know, the pink protesters are saying that about refugees and asylum seekers. Like they're saying that about like Muslims in their local community. It's the same shit, but like when it's against a minority he doesn't like, he's like perfectly happy to let it slide and listen to people's quote unquote legitimate concerns.
And this was all the same attacks during the Jim Crow South. Remember, this was the arguments for segregation of white and black people in the Jim Crow South was well, if we let black people into white spaces, what are they going to do to the women? What are they going to do to the girls? You know, it's exactly the same rehashed arguments about letting the barbarians through the gate, so to speak.
I mean, there was that film, wasn't there? What was the film? There was a propaganda film where literally it said that it pushed this message where like black men were a threat to women. But the thing is, what he says about I'm just listening to concerns. Well, I mean, these are concerns that he already agrees with. So I find it a bit dishonest when he says, well, I'm just listening to my constituents or those who've messaged into this QR code, your party questionnaire thing. But it's like, yeah, but you're posting opinions that you've said you've already agreed with. You've said that you're social conservative. You are gender critical. So I don't think there's any point saying, I'm just listening to what people are saying, but you're offering opinions that you would agree with. Like, there would have been many people who would have emailed in about something completely different or that he disagreed with, but he hadn't selected ones that he agreed with. Jim, yes, thank you. Birth of a Nation, that was the film I was talking about.
Oh, Birth of a Nation. Yeah, I was also thinking of Julius Streicher, who was the owner of Der Stürmer in Nazi Germany. They used to regularly post about in modern terms, they used to regularly write about what the historian Richard J. Evans described as like pornographic accounts of white German girls being attacked by Jewish men. Like that was a regular thing. So this is a pattern we just see again and again and again through history. And the fact that Adnan can't recognize that pattern when it's being used against trans people is, it's wild to me. And I did want to, Curious Girl Emma said they being in this case the transphobes just want to take over every single party / organisation. Just wanted to lift up that voice and put that out there. Not going to ask you
So
to comment
true.
on that.
It's so funny. I will comment once. It is so funny to me. The line from the TERFs always is there's this concerted trans lobby, the Stonewalls and the whatever advocacy groups of this world, and I'm like, well, they were just charities who were being asked for advice. Yet you, using the vast wealth of not only your billionaire backers, but also the fact that loads of people are just very wealthy middle class women anyway, like management consultants and shit, got very deep pockets to be able to lobby and to be able to get involved in media, as well as always have the backing of the very conservative right-leaning billionaire backed media too. Like you're the infiltrators here. Trans people just
100%.
wanted to be able to exist,
Yeah, 100%. And I wanted you guys to respond to this as well. Jim Speak said, bro, have you seen outside asylum hotels recently? The right are not nicer to you. What did you guys make specifically of Adnan's claim that the left were more viciously attacking him than the right were?
That is wild. Of course, he's a brown man, he's a brown Muslim. He's obviously received racism, right? The idea that people criticize him on his gender critical views is being worse than racism is insane. Now, I got called the P word literally yesterday from James Goddard, the yellow vest Brexiteer guy, the insane Nazi, right? The idea that Adnan hasn't received anything like that as a brown person, I think is absurd. Even if he hasn't been called specific slurs, he would have seen comments like, Islam has taken over Europe, they're all pedos, all this crap, right? He would have seen that. So the idea that the left are being more vicious than the right, sorry, Adnan, but you've kind of been a bitch there.
Oh, it's preposterous, isn't it? It's really, really stupid for him to say that. But again, this word just mean tweets, not exactly calls to violence like we've seen earlier today, just mean tweets at him. And yeah, in your response to the other tweets, when literally everyone's calling he's trying to take over, he's trying to Islamify Britain, he's bringing Sharia law. That's what the right are looking at in his replies on Twitter right now. I checked myself. Like, to try and say that this is more vicious than the attacks from the right, come on, please. And I'm not saying that the Twitter left is necessarily the most diplomatic of individuals, far from it. But compared to the anti-asylum protesters or the blue ticks on Twitter who are out there being intensely Islamophobic, or what was it Douglas Carswell tweeted from River to the Sea, make England Abdul free,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, apparently this is not as bad as someone saying, please don't be transphobic, would not like you in a political progressive party.
There's literally Nazis all over the platform now. It's just a really wild thing to say. I just think what it was is, look, people's egos get a little bit hurt when you criticize them. That's just what happens. And of course, it matters more to you when someone who you would say would politically align with you, whether Adnan Hussain is left wing, I don't think so. But your friends, it's worse when they criticize you. When someone hates you and they're right wing, well, I expect them to say that. So I feel like for him, it might be more traumatic, to dare, maybe not the right word to use, but it might be worse for him because his so-called friends have called him out. But it doesn't mean it's objectively worse being criticised. Even, some people told him to fuck off. Still, though, it's not that bad being told to fuck off compared to, I'm sure he's experienced countless racism and Islamophobia, if not on Twitter, his life. So...
Absolutely. Yeah, really, really good commentary tonight, guys. Great podcasting. Good podcast. Well done. Right.
Podcast.
Okay, and then I'll hand over to you guys to end the show.
Thank you so much there, Ben. Great comments, even the ones that disagree with. I love it when you comment and disagree with us, because it's good to have discussions, and it also, I think, informs both sides. I think I get better with my arguments and my own. I feel like I become more informative when people challenge me on stuff as well. I love it. But that is all we have time for. I just want to thank all of our viewers who tuned in. We had a pretty good show tonight, nearly 200 people currently. Of course, I want to thank Helena for coming on the second time this week. Please go and subscribe to her using the handle @NoJusticeMTG. It's on Twitch, YouTube's. It's the same handle for Twitter, Instagram, TikTok,
literally every single one. Yeah.
So jealous that you have the same handle. We've got different variations of it because it's been taken, right? Maybe stupid calling us Turn Left after a fucking Doctor Who episode. Maybe we should have thought that.
I mean, literally, whenever you try and search Turn Left, the very first thing is just Doctor Who.
Fucking Donna Noble. Who's that? We want Curtis Daly. Anyway, bit late for that. Remember, please, to like the stream. And if you're not a subscriber, hit that button. If you want us to grow, then you can, of course, head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly, or follow the other link, to give us a one-time contribution. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. Thank you so much. We'll be back on Friday. Have a great rest of the week.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.